Commander Jiwan stood on the bridge of the Terran Defense Fleet flagship, watching the massive alien ships appear on the view screen. The vessels were huge, each one 3 times larger than Earth's biggest warship. They moved in perfect formation, like a deadly dance in space. Their hulls gleamed silver, and energy weapons glowed along their sides like angry eyes. "How many ships are we looking at?" Jiwan asked. Captain Minho checked his instruments. 237 vessels, Commander, all heavily armed. Their technology readings are off the charts. The communication system crackled to life. A deep, cold voice filled the bridge. "Primitive humans of the third planet. I am High General Faxus of the Valdrian Empire. You will surrender immediately and prepare for integration into our glorious civilization." Jiwan looked at his crew. Most of them were young, barely out of the academy. They had trained for this moment, but seeing real alien warships was different from simulations. Fear showed in their eyes, but also determination. "We are listening," Jiwan replied into the communicator. "Your species has reached the stars without our permission. This violates imperial law. You have 2 choices. Submit now and become servants of the Empire, or be destroyed. We have conquered 847 species before you. All chose submission after seeing our power." The alien ships moved closer. Their formation was perfect, like a military parade. Each vessel stayed exactly the same distance from the others, their weapons charged with bright blue light. Captain Minho studied the enemy formation on his screen. "Commander, they fight like an ancient army. Look at these patterns. Everything is organized, predictable. They follow rules." "What kind of rules?" Jiwan asked. "Military honor codes, it seems. They announce their attacks. They give warnings. They fight face-to-face like old knights." Minho pulled up more data. "Their formation suggests they expect us to line up and fight them ship to ship." High General Faxus spoke again. "You have 72 hours to consider our generous offer. We will return to accept your surrender. If you refuse, we will begin the cleansing of your worlds. This is how we have always done it. This is the honorable way." The alien fleet disappeared, jumping to faster-than-light speed. The bridge fell silent except for the humming of computers and life support systems. "Sir," Lieutenant Haijin said from her station, "our latest intelligence reports show the Valdrian Empire has never lost a war. They have standard battle tactics. They always win through superior technology and numbers." Jiwan walked to the main view screen and stared at the empty space where the alien ships had been. "Minho, send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we need every military advisor we can get. And I mean every type of advisor." "What kind of strategy are you thinking, Commander?" "The kind that wins wars." Jiwan turned to face his crew. "These aliens think they know how humans fight because they've studied our old space battles. But they've never seen what humans do when we're really threatened." Captain Minho sent the message to Earth. Within hours, replies came back from military commanders around the world. Not just space fleet officers, but ground warfare specialists, submarine commanders, guerrilla fighters, and even historians who studied ancient battles. "Sir, we're getting some interesting responses," Minho reported. "Admiral Yunwu wants to meet with unconventional warfare experts. He's calling in specialists from every branch of human military history." "Good. What else?" "Intelligence suggests the Valdrians have a weakness. They're too organized. Their culture values honor above everything else. They announce their attacks, they fight fair, and they expect their enemies to do the same." Jiwan smiled for the first time since the aliens had appeared. "They expect their enemies to fight fair?" "Yes, sir." "Then they've never fought humans." Before, over the next 24 hours, reports came in from around human space. The Valdrian Empire controlled thousands of star systems. Their technology was centuries ahead of human science. Their ships could destroy entire planets. Every species they had conquered had tried to fight them with traditional military tactics. "Commander," Haijin called out, "we're receiving a priority message from Earth Command." Admiral Haiyanwu's face appeared on the main screen. He was an older man with gray hair and sharp eyes. G1, I've been reviewing everything we know about these Valdrians. They're powerful, but they have a problem. What problem, sir? They think war is a sport with rules. They believe in honor, proper formations, and fair fights. They've conquered hundreds of species, but every one of those species tried to beat them at their own game, and that's not what we're going to do. Not even close. Admiral Hyunwoo's expression grew serious. I'm assembling a team of the most unconventional military minds on Earth, people who understand that the only rule in war is to win and go home alive. Ji-won felt a cold excitement in his chest. What's the plan, Admiral? The plan is to make them fight our kind of war, not theirs. When they come back in 72 hours, they're expecting a traditional space battle. They want us to line up our ships and fight like gentlemen. And instead, we're going to show them why humans became the top predator on Earth. Not because we're the biggest or strongest, but because we're the most dangerous. The communication ended. Ji-won looked around his bridge at the young faces of his crew. They were scared, but they were also beginning to understand something important. Minho, start gathering intelligence on every Valdrian ship we can scan. I want to know their weaknesses, their blind spots, their communication frequencies. Yes, sir. Should we prepare for a traditional fleet engagement? No, send a message to all human colonies and outposts. Tell them to start preparing for guerrilla warfare, mining asteroids, setting up hidden supply bases, and studying unconventional tactics. Sir, with respect, we can't fight their technology with guerrilla tactics in space. Ji-won walked back to his command chair. Minho, what do you know about human military history? The basics, sir. We studied the major wars in academy. Did you study how a small group of American colonists defeated the most powerful military in the world? Or how Vietnamese farmers fought off superpowers? Or how Afghan rebels outlasted multiple empires? Minho's eyes widened as he began to understand. They used unconventional tactics. They refused to fight fair, they hit and ran, they used terrain to their advantage. They made their enemies fight on their terms, not the other way around. Ji-won sat down and looked at the empty space ahead of them. The Valdrians are about to learn something that 847 other species never figured out. What's that, Commander? Humans don't fight clean. And that's exactly why we win. The bridge crew began working with new energy. They weren't preparing for a hopeless last stand anymore. They were preparing to teach the galaxy's greatest military power what human warfare really looked like. The Valdrians expected honor, discipline, and predictable tactics. They were about to get chaos, deception, and the fury of a species that had survived ice ages, plagues, and world wars by being too stubborn and too clever to die quietly. The countdown to the Valdrian return began. 71 hours and 53 minutes remained. But now, instead of counting down to defeat, they were counting down to the galaxy's first lesson in human-style warfare. Admiral Hyunwoo stood in the war room deep beneath Seoul Command Center. The room was filled with people who looked nothing like traditional military officers. Some wore casual clothes, others had scars from old battles, and a few looked like they belonged in universities rather than war zones. Ladies and gentlemen, Admiral Hyunwoo began, in 60 hours, the most powerful military force in the galaxy is coming to destroy us. They have better ships, better weapons, and better technology. Any questions so far? A woman with short black hair raised her hand. Sir, Sergeant Yoonji reporting. Why exactly are we not running away very fast right now? The room filled with nervous laughter. Admiral Hyunwoo smiled. Because running away is exactly what they expect us to do. And because humans have a long history of winning fights we shouldn't win. Dr. Youngsu, a thin man with thick glasses, spoke up. Admiral, I've been studying the Valdrian communication patterns. Their entire culture is built around military honor. They announce their attacks, they fight in formations, and they expect their enemies to do the same. Which means they've never fought an enemy that lies, cheats, and breaks every rule in the book. Commander So-min, a naval officer with gray streaks in her hair, leaned forward. Sir, I've spent 20 years designing ways to sink ships that are bigger and stronger than mine. The principle is always the same. You don't fight their strength. You find their weakness and hit it until they sink. Colonel Yeho nodded. In ground warfare, we call it asymmetric tactics. When the enemy has tanks, you don't build bigger tanks. You build tank traps, use hit-and-run attacks, and make them fight in places where tanks are useless. Admiral Yunwu pulled up a holographic display showing the Valdrian fleet formation. Look at this. Perfect spacing, organized weapon arrays, coordinated movement. It's beautiful, efficient, and completely predictable. It's also vulnerable, Sergeant Yunji sighed. That kind of formation works great against enemies who fight the same way. But what happens when the enemy doesn't line up nicely for battle? Dr. Youngsu was taking notes on his tablet. I've been thinking about psychological warfare. The Valdrians have conquered hundreds of species using the same tactics. They're confident, maybe overconfident. That's a weakness we can exploit. How? Admiral Yamu asked. Make them doubt themselves. Make them question their intelligence. Make them angry enough to make mistakes. Dr. Youngsu pulled up his own data. Humans have been using psychological warfare for thousands of years. We know how to get inside an enemy's head. Commander Soman stood up and walked to the holographic display. Admiral, what if we don't fight them in space at all? Explain. Naval warfare taught me that the best battles are the ones your enemy doesn't know they're fighting until it's too late. We make them think they're coming to a traditional space battle, but we're really fighting a completely different war. Colonel Yeho was studying the display. Guerrilla warfare in space. Hit their supply lines, attack their communication systems, make them chase shadows while we hit them where they're not looking. The problem is ships, Sergeant Ungji said. We can't hide a battleship behind an asteroid and jump out yelling surprise. Space warfare isn't jungle warfare. Dr. Youngsu looked up from his notes. What if we change what space warfare means? Everyone turned to look at him. Go on, Admiral Hyunwoo said. The Valdrians think space battles are ship-to-ship combat with honor and rules. But what if space battles are really about information, psychology, and making the enemy fight where and when you want them to? Commander Summon's eyes lit up. Mines, not just explosive mines, but sensor mines, communication jammers, decoy signals. We turn space itself into a weapon. And we use their honor code against them, Colonel Yeho added. They announce their attacks because it's honorable. That gives us advance warning. They fight in formation because it's organized. That makes them predictable. Admiral Hyunwoo was beginning to smile. Keep going. Sergeant Yunji stood up and started pacing. In guerrilla warfare, you never let the enemy know where you really are or what you're really doing. You make them waste resources chasing fake targets while you hit their real weaknesses. Their real weakness is their predictability, Dr. Youngsu said. They do everything by the book? So we throw away the book. Commander Soman pulled up shipping routes on the display. Look at this. The Valdrian Empire has supply lines stretching across thousands of light years. They need fuel, ammunition, replacement parts. What happens if those supply lines start having accidents? Accidents, Admiral Yunwoo asked. Mysterious explosions. Communication failures, ships that disappear without a trace. Nothing that looks like military action, but everything that makes their logistics nightmare. Colonel Yeho was nodding enthusiastically. And while they're trying to figure out what's happening to their supplies, we hit them with psychological warfare. Make them think there are human ships everywhere. Make them jump at shadows. But we still have the main fleet to deal with, Sergeant Yunji pointed out. 237 ships that can blow up planets, Dr. Youngsu grinned. What if those ships never find anything to shoot at? Meaning? Meaning we make them chase ghosts. False signals, decoy ships, fake distress calls. We make them waste ammunition shooting at targets that aren't there while we're somewhere else entirely. Admiral Yunwoo looked around the room at these unconventional military minds. So our strategy is to make them fight a war they don't understand using tactics they've never seen. Exactly, Commander Soman said. They're expecting a traditional space battle with honor and rules. Instead, They get chaos, deception, and the dirtiest fighting techniques humans have developed over thousands of years of warfare. There's one more thing, Colonel Yeho said quietly. This kind of warfare only works if everyone understands that the only rule is survival. No honor, no fair play, no mercy until the enemy surrenders or retreats. The room fell silent. These were military officers, people who had sworn oaths to protect humanity and follow the laws of war. What they were discussing went against everything traditional military training taught. Admiral Yunwu looked at each person in the room. The Valdrians have conquered 847 species. Every one of those species tried to fight them honorably and lost. We're going to be different. How different? Sergeant Unji asked. We're going to fight like humans. We're going to lie, cheat, steal, and use every dirty trick our species has ever invented. We're going to make them so confused and angry that they forget how to fight. Dr. Youngsu was already working on his tablet. I can have psychological warfare packages ready in 12 hours. Fake communications, false intelligence, and enough misinformation to make them question everything they think they know about us. Commander Soman nodded. I can have mining operations started in 6 hours. By the time they arrive, space around Earth will be full of nasty surprises. And I can coordinate hit-and-run attacks on their supply lines, Colonel Yeho added. Make them think there are human raiders everywhere. Sergeant Yunji grinned. This is either the craziest plan in military history or the most brilliant, maybe both. Admiral Yunwu looked at the countdown clock on the wall. 58 hours and 32 minutes until the Valdrians returned. All right, people. Let's teach the galaxy what human warfare really looks like. Remember, there are no rules except one. We win and we go home alive. The team dispersed to begin their preparations. For the first time since the Valdrian ultimatum, someone was looking forward to the coming battle. The Valdrian fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Centauri system in perfect formation. High General Thaxis stood on his command bridge, watching the tactical display show his ships arranged in the traditional attack pattern that had conquered nearly 1,000 worlds. Status report, he commanded. Sir, long-range sensors detect human ships in the inner system. 12 vessels appearing to defend the mining colony on Centauri 4. Thaxis studied the display. The human ships were small, roughly 1/10 the size of his smallest destroyer. They were positioned in a loose defensive formation around the planet, exactly as his tactical manuals predicted primitive species would arrange themselves. Only 12 ships? Their intelligence reports indicated larger fleet numbers. Sir, it appears the humans have concentrated their forces elsewhere. These ships are likely a sacrifice force intended to delay us while their main fleet escapes. Captain Kyung-ho sat in the command chair of the human ship Dancing Bear, watching his sensors tracked the approaching Valdrian fleet. His ship was one of the smallest in the human fleet, designed for fast cargo runs between colonies. But today it was serving a very different purpose. Yunseo, are our mining charges in position? He asked his weapons officer, Lieutenant Yunseo. Checked her display. All charges placed and armed, Captain. The asteroid field is ready. Communications? Send the signal to the other ships. Make it look panicked. The communication officer, Sergeant Taeyun, began broadcasting on open frequencies. Mayday! Mayday! This is Captain Kyung-ho to all human vessels. Valdrian fleet is massive. Repeat, massive. We can't hold them. Recommend immediate retreat to Raleigh Point 7. On the Valdrian flagship, the communications officer reported to High General Thaxis. Sir, we're intercepting human communications. They appear to be in panic. Orders to retreat. As expected, begin pursuit. Maintain formation. And prepare to demonstrate the futility of resistance. The Valdrian fleet moved forward like a silver wall of death. Their ships maintained perfect spacing, their weapons charged and ready. It was a display of overwhelming power designed to terrify enemies into surrender. Captain Kenho watched the alien fleet approach. Right on schedule, all ships begin. Retreat pattern Alpha, make it look desperate. The 12 human ships turned and fled toward the inner system, their engines burning at maximum power. To the Valdrians, it looked like the cowardly retreat of an outmatched enemy. "Sir," the Valdrian tactical officer reported, "the humans are fleeing toward the asteroid field. Should we pursue?" High General Thaxus considered this. The asteroid field was dense, full of mining debris and broken rock. It would slow his ships and break up his perfect formations. But the humans were trapped. Once he followed them in, there would be nowhere left to run. Maintain pursuit. They seek to use the asteroids as cover, but our shields and weapons are superior. We will end this quickly. 3 star systems away, Lieutenant Ariam drifted in her modified civilian transport ship near a Valdrian fuel depot. The depot was a massive structure, providing fuel and supplies for the Valdrian advanced fleet. It was heavily defended and considered completely secure. "Jehun, are the packages ready?" She whispered to her demolitions expert. Specialist Jehun checked his equipment. "Remote charges are in position. When this place goes up, it's going to light up half the system." "Good. Remember, make it look like an accident." "Fuel leak, equipment malfunction, anything except military action." Lieutenant Ariam's ship was disguised as a civilian refugee vessel. Her crew wore civilian clothes and carried forged identification papers. To any casual observer, they were refugees fleeing the Valdrian advance, not military personnel on a sabotage mission. Back in the Centauri system, the Valdrian fleet entered the asteroid field. The massive alien ships moved carefully between the floating rocks, their formation becoming stretched and disorganized by the need to navigate the obstacles. "Sir," the Valdrian sensor operator called out, "I'm detecting some unusual readings." "From these asteroids?" "Explain." "Metal concentrations that don't match natural rock formations. And there are small energy signatures scattered throughout the field." High General Thaxus frowned. In 800 years of conquest, he had never encountered an enemy that prepared mining charges in asteroid fields. The concept was both inefficient and dishonorable. "Are they weapons?" "Unknown, sir. The energy signatures are too small to be effective against our shields." Captain Kyunho's ship reached the center of the asteroid field. His sensors showed the Valdrian fleet spread out in a long line, their perfect formation broken by the need to navigate between the rocks. "Now," he said quietly. Lieutenant Yuncio triggered the charges. The asteroid field exploded in a chain reaction of light and debris. But the explosions were carefully designed. Instead of trying to destroy the massive Valdrian ships, the charges were positioned to blind their sensors, jam their communications, and separate their formation. Chunks of rock and metal slammed into Valdrian hulls. The impacts did little damage to their heavy armor, but the debris clouds made it impossible for their sensors to track anything clearly. Ship-to-ship communication became garbled with static and interference. "What is happening?" "High General," Thaxus demanded as his flagship shook from multiple impacts. "Sir, the humans have mined the asteroid field. Our sensors are blind, communications are jammed, and the fleet is scattered." For the first time in his military career, Thaxus found himself in a battle he could not see or control. His ships were floating blind in the cloud of debris, unable to coordinate or communicate effectively. That was when Captain Kyungho's real plan began. From hidden positions throughout the asteroid field, small human ships emerged like deadly fish from a coral reef. These were not the 12 ships the Valdrians had been chasing. These were 30 additional vessels that had been hiding silent and cold among the asteroids for days. The human ships moved fast and unpredictably, darting between the confused Valdrian vessels like angry wasps. They targeted specific systems, communication arrays, sensor dishes, and weapon control systems. They were not trying to destroy the enemy ships, but to blind and confuse them further. "Sir, we're under attack from multiple directions," the Valdrian tactical officer reported. "I count at least 30 human vessels, but they're moving too fast to track accurately. Return fire! Destroy them!" "Sir, our weapon systems are having targeting difficulties. The debris clouds are interfering with our target locks." Meanwhile, At the Valdrian fuel depot, Lieutenant Ariam watched her sabotage plan unfold. The charges Specialist Jihoon had planted were not in the main fuel tanks, but in the safety and monitoring systems. To outside observers, it would look like a catastrophic equipment failure. Warning alarms began sounding throughout the depot. Safety systems reported fuel leaks, pressure buildups, and system failures cascading through the entire facility. Abandoned station, came the emergency broadcasts. Critical system failure in progress. The depot exploded in a brilliant fireball that could be seen from 3 planets away. Millions of tons of fuel and supplies intended for the Valdrian fleet vanished in seconds. But to anyone investigating later, it would look like an industrial accident, not military sabotage. Similar accidents were happening at Valdrian supply points throughout the sector. Communication relays suffered mysterious equipment failures. Transport ships reported navigation system errors that sent them off course. Supply convoys found themselves delayed by false emergency signals and fake distress calls. Back in the Centauri system, High General Faxus was experiencing his first military defeat. His powerful fleet was scattered, confused, and effectively useless. The humans were not fighting a battle he understood. They were not trying to prove their honor or demonstrate their courage. They were simply making it impossible for his forces to function. "Sir, recommend we withdraw from the asteroid field and regroup," his tactical officer suggested. "Withdraw? We do not withdraw from primitive species. Sir, with respect, we cannot fight an enemy we cannot see or track. Our formation is broken, our communications are jammed, and we have no clear picture of enemy numbers or positions." Captain Kyung Ho's voice came over the Valdrian communication system, somehow cutting through their jamming. "Hi, General Faxus. This is Captain Kyung Ho of the Human Defense Forces. You are welcome to stay and continue this engagement, but I should mention that we have more surprises prepared. You dare speak to me directly, human. Where is your honor? Where is your courage? My honor is in protecting my people. My courage is in making sure they survive. As for where I am?" Kyung Ho paused. "I'm right behind you." Thaxus spun around to see his rear sensors detecting a small human ship that had somehow approached his flagship undetected. The ship was close enough to ram his bridge, but instead of attacking, it simply sat there, demonstrating how completely the humans had outmaneuvered his fleet. "This is impossible. Your tactics are dishonorable. You fight like cowards." "We fight like humans," Captain Kyung Ho replied. "And we're just getting started." Dr. Young-soo sat in his hidden bunker on Luna Base, surrounded by communication equipment and psychological warfare specialists. For the past 48 hours, his team had been monitoring every Valdrian transmission, learning their language patterns, command codes, and military procedures. "Gang, what's the status on the voice synthesis program?" he asked his linguistics expert. Specialist Gaeang looked up from her computer. "We can now perfectly mimic Valdrian military communications. Their language has very rigid patterns, which makes it easy to copy once you understand the rules." "Excellent. And the misinformation packages?" Sergeant Wusung grinned from his station. "Ready to deploy, sir? We have fake battle reports, false surrender offers, and staged arguments between human commanders. The Valdrians won't know what to believe." Dr. Young-soo had spent his career studying how to break enemy morale without firing a shot. The Valdrians were perfect targets for psychological warfare because their entire culture was built on certainty and control. If he could make them doubt their intelligence reports, they would start making mistakes. Begin Phase 1. I want fake human surrender. Negotiations broadcast on their command frequencies. On the Valdrian flagship, High General Faxus was trying to understand what had happened in the asteroid field. His fleet had regrouped outside the Centauri system, but the humans had vanished like ghosts. Worse, his supply lines were experiencing mysterious failures throughout the sector. "Sir, we're receiving a priority transmission from the human fleet," his communications officer reported. "Put it through." Commander Minji's voice filled the Valdrian bridge. She was one of Dr. Young-soo's actors, trained to sound desperate and defeated. Hi, General Thaxis. This is Commander Minji of the Human Defense Forces. We wish to discuss terms of surrender. Thaxis leaned forward with interest. Finally, the humans were showing proper respect for Valdrian power. You may speak. Our fleet commanders have been debating your offer. Many of us want to surrender immediately, but some of our military leaders are refusing to see reason. We're requesting a meeting to discuss terms. In the Luna base bunker, Dr. Young-Soo smiled as he listened to the conversation. The goal was not to actually negotiate, but to make the Valdrians think humans were divided and arguing among themselves. We are prepared to be reasonable, Thaxis replied. Unconditional surrender will result in integration into the Empire. Your species will be treated fairly as long as you obey Imperial law. That's exactly what I've been trying to tell our admirals, Commander Minji said. But Admiral Hyunwoo is being stubborn. He's convinced we can win through guerrilla warfare. Some of our ship captains are talking about crazy suicide attacks. This was exactly what Dr. Young-Soo wanted the Valdrians to hear. Humans fighting among themselves, desperate and afraid, but also potentially dangerous if driven to desperation. Your Admiral Hyunwoo is a fool if he thinks primitive tactics can defeat the Imperial fleet. I agree completely. Look, I'm going to try to convince more of our commanders to see reason. Can you give us 12 more hours before you begin your attack? I think I can bring at least half our fleet over to surrender. Thaxis considered this. Dividing the human forces would make conquest much easier. Very well, 12 hours. The transmission ended. In the bunker, Dr. Young-Soo's team was already preparing the next phase of their psychological campaign. Beautiful work, Minji. Now we make them think they're facing an unpredictable enemy that might do anything. Meanwhile, Commander Minji was actually aboard her ship 3 systems away, preparing for a very different kind of operation. Her real mission was to lead staged retreats that would draw Valdrian forces into carefully prepared killing zones. Her target was a Valdrian patrol squadron that was investigating the fuel depot explosion. The aliens were trying to determine whether the explosion had been an accident or sabotage. Commander Minji's job was to give them an answer they would never expect. Jaewon, are the fake distress beacons in position? She asked her tactical officer, Lieutenant. Jaewon checked his instruments. All set, Commander. The beacons will broadcast standard civilian emergency codes. To the Valdrians, it will look like a refugee convoy under attack. And our special cargo? Medical supplies, food, and emergency equipment. Plus a few additions that the Valdrians won't discover until it's too late. Commander Minji's ship was disguised as a civilian medical transport. According to their fake identification, they were carrying refugees from the destroyed fuel depot. What the Valdrians would find, however, was a ship filled with medical supplies that had been carefully modified to become explosive devices. When activated, the Valdrian patrol detected the distress signals and moved to investigate. Their commander, Sub-General Korvex, followed standard Imperial procedure for dealing with civilian refugees. Prepare boarding parties, he ordered. We will inspect the refugee vessel and provide assistance as required by Imperial law. Sir, should we scan for weapons or military equipment? Necessary. The vessel is clearly civilian. Our sensors show only medical supplies and emergency equipment. This was exactly what Commander Minji had been counting on. The Valdrian Honor Code required them to help civilian refugees, and their military procedures were so rigid that they would not consider the possibility of disguised weapons among medical supplies. The Valdrian boarding party found exactly what they expected: frightened civilians, medical supplies, and emergency food. What they did not find were the tiny transmitters hidden inside the medical equipment, or the fact that several of the refugees were actually human intelligence officers. The ship is secure, the Valdrian boarding officer reported. 37. Civilian refugees all in good health. Medical supplies and emergency equipment as indicated by their manifest. Provide them with safe passage to the nearest Imperial Refugee Processing Center. Sub-General Korvex ordered. What happened next was a masterpiece of human deception. As the refugee ship departed under Valdrian escort, the hidden transmitters began broadcasting. But instead of explosions or attacks, they transmitted fake Valdrian military communications. The signals were designed to make it appear that Sub-General Korvax's squadron was actually a rebel force planning to attack other Valdrian units. The fake communications included discussions of military coup attempts, complaints about High General Vaxis's leadership, and plans to steal Imperial resources. Within hours, the fake signals were picked up by other Valdrian units. The perfectly synthesized voices sounded exactly like genuine Valdrian officers discussing treason and rebellion. "Sir, we're receiving disturbing intelligence reports," the communications officer on Vaxis's flagship reported. "Multiple squadrons are reporting suspicious communications from Sub-General Korvax's patrol group." "What kind of communications?" "Discussions of rebellion, sir. Planning attacks on Imperial supply convoys. Questioning your authority and discussing military coup attempts." High General Vaxis stared at the reports in disbelief. Sub-General Korvax was a loyal officer with 40 years of faithful service. But the evidence was right there in the intercepted communications. "This is impossible. Korvax would never betray the Empire." "Sir, the voice patterns match perfectly. Our analysis confirms these are genuine Valdrian military communications." What Vaxis did not know was that Dr. Youngsu's team had spent days perfecting their ability to fake Valdrian voices and military codes. The evidence looked genuine because it had been designed by experts in psychological warfare to exploit the Valdrians' trust in their own technology. "Order Sub-General Korvax to return to the flagship immediately for questioning." "Sir, we've lost contact with this squadron. They appear to have gone dark." In reality, Sub-General Korvax was desperately trying to understand why other Valdrian units were treating him as a traitor. His communications were being jammed by human interference, and his attempts to contact the flagship were being blocked. The confusion spread throughout the Valdrian fleet. Officers began questioning each other's loyalty. Communication breakdowns led to missed orders and abandoned missions. Ships that should have been coordinating their attacks were instead isolated and suspicious of each other. Dr. Youngsu monitored the chaos from his bunker with satisfaction. "Phase 2 is working perfectly. They're starting to turn on each other." "What's Phase 3? Specialist Gaeong asked. "Phase 3 is where we make them think we know everything about their plans, even though we're actually just guessing." Dr. Youngsu activated his next psychological warfare package. This time, the fake human communications were designed to make the Valdrians think their military codes had been completely compromised. "Admiral Hyunwoo to all human fleet commanders," the fake broadcast began. "Intelligence reports that Valdrian Fleet Group 7 will attack the mining colonies at 0600 tomorrow. All defensive forces should prepare accordingly." The problem was that Fleet Group 7's attack plans were supposed to be completely secret. Only the highest-ranking Valdrian officers knew about the planned assault. When the humans seemed to know these secret plans in advance, it suggested that their security had been completely breached. High General Vaxis received reports of the human broadcast within minutes. "How do they know about Fleet Group 7's mission?" "Sir, it's impossible. Those orders were classified at the highest levels." "Only 12. Major Jinwoo floated in zero gravity inside the captured Valdrian supply ship, carefully examining the alien equipment his team had stolen during their raid on the logistics convoy. The ship's cargo hold was filled with Valdrian weapons, armor, communication devices, and most importantly, military identification codes. "Seoyeon, how are we doing with the voice modulators?" he asked his electronics specialist. Sergeant Seoyeon looked up from her workbench, where she was modifying human vocal cords with alien technology. "The modulators work perfectly, sir. When we speak, we'll sound exactly like Valdrian military personnel. Even their own voice recognition systems won't detect the difference." "And the identification badges?" "All programmed with legitimate Valdrian military codes. As far as their computers know, we're loyal Imperial soldiers." Major Jinwoo's mission was the most dangerous part of the human psychological warfare campaign. His team would disguise themselves as Valdrian military personnel and begin attacking other Valdrian positions. The goal was to make the aliens think their own forces were rebelling against Imperial authority. Meanwhile, Engineer Hyung was preparing humanity's most unconventional weapon in a secret facility hidden in the asteroid belt. Her laboratory was filled with thousands of small robotic drones, each no larger than a human fist. Unlike traditional military drones, these were designed to be cheap, expendable, and completely unpredictable. Do-Yun, run diagnostic on drone batch 774. She called to her programming assistant. Technician Do-Yun activated a group of 50 drones. They immediately began moving in what looked like random patterns, bumping into walls, spinning in circles, and occasionally clustering together like a swarm of confused insects. "They look broken," Do-Yun observed. "They're perfect," Engineer Hyung replied with a smile. Traditional military drones are programmed to follow orders and move in coordinated patterns. These drones are programmed to be unpredictable. Each one has simple artificial intelligence that makes random decisions. How is that useful? Watch what happens when they encounter a target. Hyung activated a training simulation. The drones detected a mock enemy ship and immediately swarmed toward it. But instead of attacking in an organized formation, they came from every direction at once, some spinning wildly, others moving in zigzag patterns, and a few even attacking backwards. The enemy can't predict where they'll come from or what they'll do next, Hyung explained. They're like angry bees. You can kill individual bees, but you can't fight the whole swarm because it doesn't follow any logical pattern. Back on the captured Valdrian supply ship, Major Jinwoo's team was putting the finishing touches on their disguises. They wore authentic Valdrian military uniforms, carried real Imperial weapons, and had their faces surgically altered to look more like the alien species. "Remember," Major Jinwoo addressed his team, "we're not trying to win a battle, we're trying to start a civil war. Every attack must look like it's coming from other Valdrian units." Corporal Hansel checked his weapon. "Sir, what's our target?" "Valdran Communications Station 47. It's a major relay point for military communications throughout this sector. When we attack it, we'll be wearing the uniforms of Valdrian Fleet Group 5 and broadcasting their military codes." "Won't they know Fleet Group 5 is actually 3? Systems away?" "That's exactly the point. When the communications station is attacked by people who are supposed to be somewhere else, it will look like a coordinated rebellion involving multiple Valdrian units." The team boarded their shuttle and departed for the communications station. The shuttle was also captured Valdrian equipment, modified to broadcast the correct identification codes. To any observer, it would look like a routine Imperial military. Transport. Communication Station 47 was a massive structure built into a small moon. It had heavy defenses and was staffed by over 300 Valdrian military personnel. Under normal circumstances, attacking such a facility would require a full battle fleet, but Major Jinwoo was not planning a normal attack. "Control Tower, this is Transport 794 requesting permission to dock," he said, using perfect Valdrian military procedure and a voice that sounded exactly like an Imperial officer. "Transport 794, you are cleared for docking. Bay 12, please prepare for standard security inspection." "Understood, Control. We have priority cargo for the station commander." The shuttle docked without incident. Major Jinwoo and his team walked through the station corridors wearing Valdrian uniforms and carrying official-looking cargo containers. To the station personnel, they appeared to be routine military couriers. They reached the main communication control center without being challenged. The Valdrian guards checked their identification badges, which registered as completely legitimate in the Imperial security system. "Priority delivery for Station Commander Thurvik," Major Jinwoo announced. "The commander is in Conference Room A," the duty officer replied. "You may wait in the security office." Instead of waiting, Major Jinwoo's team spread throughout the communications center. They had studied the station's layout for weeks and knew exactly where to place their sabotage devices. The devices were not explosives. Instead, they were sophisticated pieces of human technology designed to take control of the station's communication systems. When activated, they would make it appear that the station was broadcasting treasonous messages and coordinating attacks. on other Imperial facilities. Charges placed, Sergeant Sioyan reported quietly. All teams execute, Major Jinwoo ordered. The sabotage devices activated simultaneously. Throughout the station, communication systems began broadcasting fake messages that appeared to come from Station Commander Thurvik himself. All loyal Imperial forces, this is Commander Thurvik. High General Thaxis has betrayed the Empire and must be removed from command. We are coordinating with Fleet Groups 5, 7, and 12 to restore proper Imperial leadership. The messages were broadcast on military frequencies throughout the sector. To every Valdrian unit that received them, it appeared that Station 47 had joined a military rebellion against High General Thaxis, but the deception was even more sophisticated than it appeared. The fake messages were designed to implicate multiple Valdrian units in the supposed rebellion. Fleet Group 5, Fleet Group 7, and Fleet Group 12 would all appear to be part of a coordinated coup attempt within minutes. Chaos erupted throughout the Valdrian command structure. Fleet commanders received orders to attack each other. Communication stations stopped relaying messages because they could not determine which orders were legitimate. Supply convoys were redirected to avoid areas controlled by rebel forces, Major Jinwoo and his team quietly slipped away from Communication Station 47 while the Valdrian personnel tried to understand why their own equipment was broadcasting treasonous messages. Meanwhile, Engineer Hyung was deploying her drone swarms against the Valdrian patrol fleet. The aliens had detected unusual activity in the asteroid belt and sent ships to investigate. "Release the first wave," she ordered. 1,000 small drones emerged from hidden positions among the asteroids. To the Valdrian sensors, they looked like a cloud of debris or small asteroids drifting in space. "Sir, I'm detecting multiple small objects on an intercept course," the Valdrian tactical officer reported. "Asteroids? Unknown, sir. They're moving in unusual patterns." Sub-Commander Vorthuk studied his tactical display. The small objects were indeed moving strangely, not following the predictable orbits of natural debris. Could they be weapons? "Sir, they're too small to be effective against our shields. Each object appears to be roughly the size of a human head." "Ignore them. Continue patrol pattern." That was exactly the reaction Engineer Hyung had expected. The Valdrians were accustomed to fighting large, obvious threats. They had never encountered an enemy that used thousands of tiny, seemingly harmless objects as weapons. The drone swarm reached the Valdrian patrol fleet and immediately began their programmed behavior. Instead of attacking in coordinated waves, each drone made independent decisions about how to approach the enemy ships. Some drones attached themselves to weapon systems and began broadcasting jamming signals. Others flew into engine exhausts and exploded, not to cause major damage, but to disrupt engine efficiency. A few dozen drones simply orbited the Valdrian ships at high speed, creating sensor interference and making it difficult to track other threats. "Sir, these objects are interfering with our systems," the tactical officer reported. "Weapons targeting is compromised, sensors are being jammed, and engine efficiency is down 12%. "Destroy them. Sir, they're too small and too fast. Our weapons are designed for ship-to-ship combat, not anti-personnel defense." The Valdrian patrol found itself in the humiliating position of being harassed by weapons too small to fight effectively. Their massive energy cannons could not target individual drones, and their defensive systems were not designed to handle swarm attacks. "Deploy fighter craft to eliminate the drones manually." "Sir, we don't have fighter craft." Imperial doctrine relies on ship-to-ship engagement with capital vessels. This was another weakness the humans had identified in Valdrian military thinking. The aliens had become so focused on large-scale battles between major warships that they had no effective defense. Intelligence Officer Naeong sat in her analysis chamber aboard the hidden human base, studying thousands of hours of intercepted Valdrian communications. For weeks, she had been searching for the perfect weakness in their enemy's psychology. And finally she had found it. "Admiral," she said over the secure communication link, "I think I've discovered how to end this war." Admiral Hyun-woo's image appeared on her screen. "What did you find?" The Valdrians have a cultural obsession with personal honor that goes beyond military procedure. When a high-ranking commander is challenged to individual combat, their society requires them to accept, regardless of tactical considerations. Individual combat, like ancient dueling? Exactly. And here's the important part. If High General Thaxus loses a personal duel, it would be such a blow to Valdrian morale that their entire fleet structure could collapse. Admiral Hyunwoo leaned forward with interest. You want to challenge their supreme commander to single combat? I want to trap him in single combat. There's a difference. Captain Dongwoo was preparing for the most important mission of his military career. His fighter ship had been modified with technology that the Valdrians had never encountered. The weapons, shields, and engines were all designed to give him advantages that would not be obvious until the battle began. Suyun, final systems check, he said to his technical officer. Sergeant Suyun ran through the diagnostic procedures. All systems green, Captain. The gravitic disruptors are online, the adaptive shields are functioning, and the predictive targeting system is ready. What about the psychological warfare package? Ready to deploy? When activated, it will make the general think you're making mistakes while you're actually setting traps. Captain Dongwoo's ship looked like a standard human fighter, but it contained decades of secret human research into unconventional space combat techniques. The Valdrians expected honorable dueling with traditional weapons. They were going to get something very different. Intelligence Officer Naeong began broadcasting her challenge on all Valdrian military frequencies. Her message was carefully crafted to exploit every aspect of Valdrian honor culture. High General Thaxus of the Valdrian Empire, this is Intelligence Officer Naeong of the Human Resistance. Your forces have proven unable to defeat our unconventional tactics through traditional military engagement. I hereby challenge you to single combat, warrior to warrior, to determine the outcome of this conflict. The message continued with carefully chosen words designed to make it impossible for Thaxus to refuse without losing face before his entire fleet. If you accept this challenge and win, humanity will surrender immediately and accept integration into your empire. If you lose, your forces will withdraw from human space and leave us in peace. This is the ancient way, the honorable way, the way of true warriors. On the Valdrian flagship, High General Thaxus read the challenge with a mixture of anger and disbelief. The human was not only insulting his military competence, but doing so in language that invoked the most sacred traditions of Valdrian warrior culture. Sir, his second-in-command said carefully, you are not required to accept challenges from inferior species. But I am required to accept challenges from worthy opponents, Thaxus replied. And these humans, despite their dishonorable tactics, have proven themselves worthy of respect. Sir, this could be a trap? Of course it's a trap. These humans fight nothing but traps and deceptions. But sometimes honor requires walking into a trap with your eyes open. Thaxus activated his communication system. Human Intelligence Officer Naeong, I accept your challenge. Single combat, ship to ship, with traditional weapons and honorable conduct. Choose your champion. My champion is Captain Dongwoo, pilot of the fastest fighter in the human fleet. Choose the location for our duel. The neutral zone between our fleets. No interference from other vessels. Victory by destruction or surrender only. What High General Thaxus did not know was that the neutral zone had been carefully prepared by human engineers. It appeared to be empty space, but it was actually filled with gravitational anomalies, sensor interference, and hidden devices that would affect the battle in subtle ways. Captain Dongwoo launched from the human fleet in his modified fighter. To observers, it looked like a suicide mission. His ship was tiny compared to Thaxus's personal combat vessel, a massive fighter bomber designed for both individual combat and fleet command. All units, this is High General Thaxus. You will observe this combat and learn how true warriors conduct themselves in battle. The two ships met in the center of the designated combat zone. Thaxus's vessel was an impressive sight, covered in weapons and armor that could destroy most human ships with a single shot. Dongwoo's fighter looked fragile by comparison. Human warrior, Thaxus broadcast. You may fire first, as is proper when facing a superior opponent. Thank you for your courtesy, General, Dongwu replied. But I prefer to see what I'm fighting. First, this was the beginning of the psychological warfare aspect of the duel. Instead of attacking immediately, Dongwu began flying evasive patterns around Thaxus's ship, as if he were afraid to engage directly. Are you a coward, human? Attack. Me with honor, just trying to find your weak spots, General. Give me a moment. Dongwu's apparent cowardice was actually a careful analysis of his opponent's capabilities. His ship sensors were recording every aspect of the Valdrian vessel's performance: weapon charging rates, shield frequencies, engine response times, and pilot reaction patterns. After several minutes of evasive maneuvering, Dongwu finally attacked. His weapon struck Thaxus's shields but did minimal damage, exactly as expected. The human fighter then retreated rapidly, as if the pilot were overwhelmed by his opponent's superior firepower. Pathetic, Thaxus muttered, pursuing the fleeing. Human ship, this is how your species fights. With cowardice and retreat. But Dongwu was not retreating randomly. He was leading Thaxus through specific areas of the combat zone where the hidden gravitational anomalies would begin affecting the Valdrian ship's performance. The effects were subtle at first: slight changes in engine efficiency, minor variations in weapon accuracy, small delays in shield response. Something is wrong with my ship, Thaxus realized as his targeting systems began showing minor errors. Equipment. Malfunctions, General? Dongwu asked innocently. That's unfortunate. Do not mock me, human. Thaxus fired a full barrage of weapons at the human fighter. The attack should have destroyed Dongwu's ship instantly, but the human pilot somehow evaded every shot with maneuvers that should have been impossible. What Thaxus did not know was that Dongwu's ship was equipped with predictive targeting systems that could anticipate Valdrian weapon patterns. The evasive maneuvers looked like incredible piloting skill, but they were actually the result of advanced human technology analyzing and countering traditional Valdrian tactics. You fight well for a primitive species, Thaxus admitted grudgingly. You, General, you're not bad yourself. The battle continued, with Dongwu appearing to barely survive each exchange while actually gathering more intelligence about his opponent's capabilities. His ship's adaptive shields were learning to counter Valdrian energy weapons, while his gravitic disruptors were gradually affecting Thaxus's ship performance. This is taking too long, Thaxus decided. Time to end this. The Valdrian commander activated his ship's most powerful weapon system, a plasma cannon that could penetrate any known shield technology. The weapon charged with brilliant energy, preparing to deliver a killing blow. But when Thaxus fired, the plasma beam struck one of the hidden gravitic disruptors that Dongwu had been carefully maneuvering him toward. The gravitational field bent the energy beam back toward its source, causing Thaxus's own weapon to damage his ship's power systems. Impossible. My own weapon cannot harm my ship. Physics can be tricky, General, Dongwu replied. Finally revealing his true capabilities, Dongwu's ship suddenly accelerated to speeds that should have been impossible for its size. His weapons, which had seemed weak before, now fired with devastating accuracy at the specific weak points his sensors had identified during the early stages of the battle. You have been deceiving me, Thaxus realized. I've been fighting like a human, Dongwu corrected. We don't fight to prove we're honorable, we fight to win. Thaxus's ship, damaged by its own reflected weapon and targeted by systems designed specifically to counter Valdrian technology, began losing power and maneuverability. But the proud general was not ready to surrender. Even if you defeat me, my fleet will continue this war. Will they? Dongwu asked. Look around you, General. For the first time since the duel began, Thaxus checked his long-range sensors. What he saw filled him with horror. His fleet was scattered throughout the star system, with individual ships engaging in battles against each other. Some vessels were broadcasting distress signals, others were reporting mutinies, and several had gone completely silent. What have you done? We've been fighting your fleet the same way I've been fighting you. with deception, misdirection, and tactics you never expected to encounter. Intelligence Officer Naong's voice joined the conversation. General, while you've been engaged in honorable single combat, my colleagues have been waging unconventional warfare against your forces. Your communication systems have been compromised, your supply lines. The news of High General Vaxus's defeat spread through the Valdrian fleet like a poison. Captain Heron monitored the enemy communications from her stealth ship, listening to the confusion and growing panic in the alien voices. Jiwoo, are you getting this? She asked her communication specialist. Sergeant Jiwoo nodded grimly. Their entire command structure is collapsing. Ship commanders are questioning orders, supply officers are reporting equipment failures, and some vessels are requesting permission to withdraw. Perfect. That's exactly what we wanted. A defeated enemy is dangerous, but a confused enemy is helpless. Captain Heron's mission was infiltration on a scale never before attempted in galactic warfare. Her team had spent weeks disguising themselves as Valdrian refugees, complete with alien appearance modifications, fake identification papers, and carefully rehearsed personal histories. Minseok, status on the virus packages? She asked her cyber. Warfare specialist, Technician Minseok checked his equipment. All 47 computer viruses are ready for deployment. Each one is designed to look like a different type of system failure. Power grid malfunctions, navigation errors, communication glitches, and life support irregularities. The important thing is that they spread slowly, Heron emphasized. We want the Valdrians to think their technology is failing naturally, not that they're under cyber attack. General Seokjin coordinated the final phase of the human campaign from his command center on Ceres Station. Around him, displays showed the status of human operations throughout Valdrian space. What he saw was the systematic destruction of an empire through methods that had never been used in galactic warfare. Boyang, report on psychological operations, he ordered. Commander Boyang pulled up her analysis screens. Sir, Valdrian morale has dropped to critical levels. They're experiencing widespread communication failures, supply chain disruptions, and complete breakdown of unit cohesion. Equipment failures. Most of it is fake, sir. Our sabotage teams have been very creative. They're not destroying Valdrian equipment so much as making it unreliable and unpredictable. General Seokjin studied the tactical displays. The Valdrian fleet was still numerically superior to human forces, but numbers meant nothing when the enemy could not coordinate their actions or trust their own technology. What's the status on the False Alliance operation? Ready to implement, sir. When you give the order, we'll convince the Valdrians that humanity has secretly allied with their ancient enemies. Captain Heron's infiltration team was aboard Valdrian. Transport Ship 73, disguised as refugees fleeing the war zone. The alien crew had accepted them without question, following standard Imperial procedures for civilian evacuation. Remember, Heron whispered to her team, we're terrified. Refugees who just want to get away from the fighting. Act scared, grateful, and completely harmless. Sergeant Jiwoo was carrying a small device disguised as a personal medical scanner. In reality, it was one of the most sophisticated computer viruses ever created by human intelligence services. When connected to any Valdrian computer system, it would spread throughout their network, causing random equipment failures and data corruption. Excuse me, Jiwoo said to a Valdrian technician. Speaking in perfect alien language, my medical scanner is not working properly. Could you help me check it on your diagnostic system? The Valdrian technician was happy to help the frightened refugee. He connected the device to the ship's main computer network to run a simple diagnostic check. Within seconds, the virus began spreading through the transport ship's systems. It was designed to activate slowly over the course of several days, so that the connection would not be obvious. Similar infiltration operations were taking place throughout the Valdrian fleet. Human agents, disguised as refugees, prisoners, or even Valdrian personnel, were systematically introducing computer viruses into enemy systems. Sir, Technician Minseok reported to Captain Heron, the virus has successfully infected the transport. Ship's navigation, communication, and life support systems. Estimated time to full network penetration, 72 hours. Excellent. Make sure it looks like natural equipment degradation, not sabotage. General Seokjin was preparing to launch the most audacious deception of the entire war. His plan was to convince the Valdrians that humanity had secretly formed an alliance with the Kethmoran Empire, the Valdrians' oldest and most dangerous enemies. Su-yang, are the fake battle recordings ready? He asked his intelligence chief, Major. Su-yang activated her holographic displays. Sir, we have fabricated evidence of joint human-Kethmoran military operations, including battle footage, communication logs, and strategic planning documents. How realistic is it? Sir, our artificial intelligence systems have analyzed thousands of hours of actual Kethmoran military communications. The fake evidence is indistinguishable from genuine alliance documents. The Kethmoran Empire had been at war with the Valdrians for over 200 years. They were technologically advanced, militarily powerful, and absolutely ruthless in their hatred of Valdrian civilization. The idea that humans might have allied with the Kethmorans was terrifying to any Valdrian commander. Begin broadcast of the false alliance evidence. General Seokjin ordered. The fabricated intelligence began appearing on Valdrian communication networks, disguised as intercepted enemy transmissions. To Valdrian intelligence analysts, it appeared that human and Kethmoran forces were coordinating attacks throughout the sector. Sir, Commander Boyang reported, we're detecting increased Valdrian communication traffic. They're definitely taking the false alliance seriously. What kind of responses? Panic, mostly. Several fleet commanders are requesting immediate reinforcements. Some are asking for permission to withdraw to defensive positions. The psychological impact was exactly what General Seokjin had hoped for. The Valdrians were already confused and demoralized by human unconventional tactics. The possibility that they were now facing a two-front war against both humans and their ancient enemies was pushing them toward complete tactical breakdown. Aboard the infected Valdrian transport ship, Captain Heron's virus was beginning to show its effects. The ship's navigation system started giving incorrect readings. Communication equipment developed mysterious static, and life support systems began displaying false alarms. What's happening to our ship? One of the Valdrian crew members asked. In confusion. Equipment malfunctions, sir, the chief engineer replied. Multiple systems are showing irregular performance. Can you fix it? Sir, the problems appear to be random hardware failures. I've never seen anything like it. This was exactly the reaction the virus was designed to produce. Instead of obviously malicious software, it created the appearance of natural equipment degradation that would be difficult to trace or repair. Similar system failures were beginning to appear throughout the Valdrian fleet. Ships reported navigation errors that sent them off course, communication failures that prevented coordination with other vessels, and weapon systems that occasionally misfired or failed to respond to commands. Sir, Major Su-yang reported to General Seokjin, Valdrian fleet efficiency has dropped by 40% in the last 24 hours. They're spending more time dealing with equipment problems than conducting military operations. And they still don't suspect sabotage? No. Sir, the computer viruses are designed to mimic natural equipment failure patterns. To Valdrian engineers, it looks like their technology is simply wearing out under the stress of extended military operations. The final element of General Seokjin's strategy was information warfare on a scale never before attempted. His teams began broadcasting fake news reports, false intelligence summaries, and fabricated military communications designed to create maximum confusion and paranoia. Chanwoo, status on the misinformation campaign? He asked his propaganda specialist. Colonel Chanwoo pulled up his broadcasting schedules. Sir, we're currently transmitting on 47 different Valdrian communication frequencies. Enemy personnel are receiving conflicting orders, false casualty reports, and fake intelligence about human military capabilities. What kind of intelligence? We're telling them that human forces are much larger than they actually are, that we have secret weapons we don't actually possess, and that we've been planning this war for decades. The misinformation was designed to exploit the Valdrians. Growing paranoia and confusion. Already shaken by equipment failures and the possibility of fighting a two-front war, they were now being told that humans were far more dangerous and well-prepared than anyone had realized. "Sir," Commander Boyang reported urgently, "we're detecting massive changes in Valdrian fleet movements. Multiple squadrons are withdrawing from forward positions. Supply convoys are being rerouted, and several commanders are requesting emergency conferences with fleet headquarters." General Sojin studied the tactical displays with satisfaction. The mighty Valdrian Empire was collapsing not through military defeat, but through complete loss of confidence in their own systems and information. They can't trust their equipment, they can't trust their intelligence, and they can't trust their communications, he observed. An army that can't trust anything is an army that can't fight. Captain Heron received new orders over her secure communication link. All infiltration teams prepare for Phase 7 extractee. Admiral Daeyun stood in the central command chamber of Earth Defense Headquarters, watching the final reports come in from across human space. The Valdrian Empire was in full retreat, but the most important part of the human victory was still to come. "Commanders," he addressed the assembled military leaders, "we have approximately 6 hours before the Valdrian fleet reaches the edge of our territory. During that time, we need to ensure they never want to come back." Commander Ji-won, who had started this entire conflict by refusing the original Valdrian ultimatum, stepped forward. "Sir, what do you have in mind?" "We're going to give them a farewell gift that will keep them awake at night for the next century." Admiral Daeyun activated the main tactical display, showing the positions of both fleets throughout the local star systems. The Valdrian forces were scattered, confused, and retreating in small groups rather than as a coordinated fleet. "Dr. Young-soo, status on the final psychological operation?" Dr. Young-soo looked up from his communication equipment with a satisfied smile. "Sir, we're ready to convince them that this entire war was just a small sample of human military capability." "Explain." "We're going to make them believe that we've been holding back our real weapons and tactics, waiting to see if they were worthy opponents. When they realize we were never really trying to destroy them, just playing with them, it will shatter their confidence permanently." Captain Minho frowned. "Sir, isn't that somewhat cruel?" "They're already defeated." Admiral Daeun's expression grew serious. "Captain, the Valdrians conquered 847 species before they encountered us. Every one of those species is still enslaved in their empire. This isn't just about winning a war, it's about making sure they never start another one. The final phase of human psychological warfare was the most sophisticated operation in the history of galactic conflict. Instead of simply letting the Valdrians retreat, the humans were going to convince them that everything they had experienced was just a demonstration of human power, not a real war." "June, begin broadcasting the final deception package." Admiral Daeyun ordered. Communications specialist June activated her equipment. Throughout Valdrian space, enemy ships began receiving what appeared to be internal human military communications, discussing the war. "Command to all human fleet elements," the fake broadcast began. "The Valdrian demonstration phase is now complete. All units return to standard operational procedures. The aliens have provided useful data on conventional Imperial tactics." On the retreating Valdrian flagship, Sub-General Koreth listened to the intercepted human transmission with growing horror. "Did they just say demonstration phase?" he asked his communications officer. "Sir, it appears the humans were treating our invasion as a training exercise." More fake transmissions followed, each one designed to make the Valdrians believe that humanity possessed military capabilities far beyond what they had shown during the conflict. Weapons Testing Division. To Fleet Command, the new gravity bombs and timeline disruptor devices were not required for the Valdrian engagement. Recommend return to storage until we encounter a more challenging opponent. Intelligence Division to all units. The Valdrian Empire has been classified as a Category 3 threat. Standard deception and misdirection protocols were sufficient. to achieve tactical objectives. Sub-General Korath stared at the communications reports in disbelief. Are they saying we were not even considered a serious threat? Sir, it appears that humans have weapons and tactics they never used against us. What we experienced was apparently their weakest military response. This was exactly the reaction Admiral Dayon had hoped for. The Valdrians were not just defeated. They were humiliated by the suggestion that they had never faced humanity's real military power. Sir, the Valdrian intelligence officer reported, we're also intercepting discussions about something called Project Omega and references to alliances with species we've never heard of. What kind of alliances? Unknown, sir. But the humans seem to have military partnerships throughout the galaxy that we were completely unaware of. In reality, Project Omega was nothing more than a file name Dr. Youngsu had invented 30 minutes earlier. The mysterious alien allies were fictional species created by human imagination. But to the paranoid and defeated Valdrians, these fabricated intelligence reports suggested that humanity was part of a vast galactic conspiracy they had never detected. Navigator, Sub-General Korath ordered, increase retreat speed. I want to be out of human space as quickly as possible. Sir, our engines are still experiencing those mysterious equipment failures. Then fix them. Use emergency power if necessary? Captain Dongwu, still flying his modified fighter, was conducting the final phase of his mission. Instead of harassing the retreating Valdrians, he was making sure they left with the right impression of human capabilities. Valdrian Sub-General Korath, this is Captain Dongwu, he broadcast on open frequencies. What do you want, human? I wanted to apologize for the misunderstanding. Our military command didn't realize your empire was conducting a formal invasion. We thought you were just running training exercises in our space? Training ... exercises? Yes, sir. If we had known you were serious about conquest, we would have responded with our actual military forces instead of our local defense militia. The psychological impact was devastating. Sub-General Korath realized that everything his mighty fleet had fought against was apparently just human local defense forces, not their real military. You mean we never fought your main fleet? Main fleet? Sir, we have 17 main fleets, plus the Deep Space Forces, the Special Operations Divisions, and our Galactic Alliance partners. You were fighting the equivalent of our Neighborhood Watch program. This was, of course, completely untrue. The forces that had defeated the Valdrians represented the majority of human military capability, but the aliens had no way to verify the claim, and their shattered confidence made them willing to believe the worst possible news about their situation. How many ships does humanity actually have? Captain Dongwu paused dramatically. Sir, that information is classified. But I can tell you that what you've seen represents less than 2% of our total military capability. Sub-General Korath felt his warrior pride crumble completely. His empire's greatest fleet had been defeated by less than 2% of human military power. What would happen if they ever faced the other 98%? Admiral Dayon watched the Valdrian retreat accelerate as his final psychological warfare campaign took effect. The enemy ships were now fleeing at maximum speed, desperate to escape what they believed was the most dangerous military force in the galaxy. Sir, Commander Juwan reported, long-range sensors show the last Valdrian ships crossing the boundary of our space. Any signs they're planning to return? No, sir. If anything, they appear to be retreating much deeper into their own territory than necessary. They're not just leaving our space, they're putting as much distance as possible between themselves and us. Dr. Youngsu looked up from his monitoring equipment. Sir, intercepted Valdrian communications suggest they're going to recommend that their empire avoid this entire sector of the galaxy indefinitely. What reasons are they giving? They're reporting that humanity represents an unknown and potentially overwhelming military threat. They recommend reclassifying human space as a strategic hazard zone. Admiral Dayon smiled with satisfaction. This was the perfect outcome. The Valdrians were not just defeated, they were terrified of returning. More importantly, word of their Defeat would spread throughout the galaxy, establishing humanity's reputation as a species to be respected and avoided. What about the other galactic civilizations? Sir, we're receiving diplomatic communications from dozens of species. They all want to establish trade relations, defense agreements, and cultural exchanges with humanity. Because they think we're powerful? Because they think we're smart, sir. Fighting the Valdrians with conventional tactics has been tried by hundreds of species. Everyone failed until we showed that there are other ways to wage war. Captain Dongwu returned to the human fleet as the last Valdrian ships disappeared into hyperspace. His mission was complete, and he had helped ensure that the galaxy's most aggressive empire would think twice before starting another war of conquest. Commander G1, he reported, the Valdrians are gone. Based on their communications, I don't think they'll be back anytime soon. What did you tell them? That they had been fighting our local defense forces, not our real military? They seemed to find that very discouraging. Commander Juwan laughed. Our local defense forces? It seemed like the kind of thing that would keep them awake at night. The war was over, but its effects were just beginning. Throughout the galaxy, military strategists were studying the human campaign against the Valdrians, trying to understand how a technologically inferior species had achieved such a complete victory. Sir, Dr. Young-Soo reported to Admiral Daeyan, we're receiving intelligence reports that several other aggressive civilizations have canceled planned invasion campaigns. Apparently, news of our victory has made conquest seem much more risky and unpredictable. Good, that was the real goal. Sir, Dr. Young-Soo, we didn't fight this war to defeat the Valdrians. We fought it to change how the galaxy thinks.